Thank you for joining our Protect Ohio Children Back to School webinar. It's only been a couple of days since the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk. We are so thankful for his life and for his leadership, and we just ask everyone to please pray for his family at this time. Charlie will forever be an inspiration to us, and we would like to encourage everyone not just to continue to speak out, but let's raise our voices, the volume of our voices, to oppose radical indoctrination in our taxpayer-funded kindergarten through 12th grade schools. It's time to take back our school boards through our elections, and it's time for parents to speak out at school board meetings, engaging in civil conversation about what's being taught and how our parental rights are being implemented on a local level. Based on what we know right now, the left has no intention of slowing down their dangerous curriculum and brainwashing of children in the schools. That is why we strongly recommend that parents consider alternatives to government schools. Take the children out as soon as possible. At the end of today's webinar, we will have a brief Q&A session where you can ask your questions through the chat at the bottom of your screen. At this time, I'd like to turn this over to John Stover.
Thank you, Diane. I'm John Stover, president of Ohio Value Voters, and it's good to be with you today. You know, one of the things that our organization, Ohio Value Voters and Protect Ohio Children, has been working on, and I do have an update for everyone relative to this matter. But before I begin, let me just state for all those that are watching, we have 486 more days until we no longer have Mike DeWine as our governor. So the January 11th, 2027, we'll see a new governor sworn into office, and certainly that's something that I and many others are looking forward to. You know, if those that are watching today can log to a whatever browser you use, but just key in ORC space 5122.04, ORC space 5122.04. And this is a law that's been on the books for some time. It's just a terrible law. And I'll just read the first sentence of the law that's in place. It basically states outpatient services for minors without knowledge or consent of parent or guardian. Then it goes on to say, upon the request of a minor 14 years of age or older, a mental health professional may provide outpatient mental health services, excluding the use of medication, without the consent or knowledge of the minor's parents or guardian. You know, this is something that we've been working on now since the beginning of the year. We do have a bill, House Bill 172, that's been introduced by the General Assembly by Representative Jonathan Newman. It's a good bill. It basically states that, you know, we need to see this current law that's in place repealed. And why? Parents have a right to know relative to a child's health, be it mental or physical, as well as all other educational elements that have anything to do with their child. And right now, we have this law that's in place that need to be repealed. It's also important to note that back in December of last year, the Ohio General Assembly, and it went from the House to the Senate. The Senate, in fact, passed a parental Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights gives parents a number of rights that when it was passed, it was a good bill. And you can take a look at that if you go to Ohio Revised Code 3313.473. ORC 3313.473, and I won't go in and read some of the content of the law that's in place, but this was a good law at the time, and certainly it gives the parents the rights to know the condition of their child 14 years of age and older. You know, it stands to reason that there's really something wrong in the state of Ohio when you would think that the governor has embraced Ohio Revised Code 5122.04 that gives a minor 14 years of age and older the right to keep a suicide or any other suicide thoughts that a child may have, or any other mental health issue they may have, that this could be kept from a parent. It's just mind-boggling to think this is the case. And I would say this, that over the last couple of weeks, I've had conversations with 3 of our state senators. All 3 state senators basically stated, look, we need to repeal this. So we have now a bill that's being drafted in the Senate that is going to be introduced here soon in committee. And we are going to see both bills make their way to the governor's desk. Now, it was asked of me, well, what do you think? Do you think the governor is going to veto this? And I said, anything's possible with this governor. If in fact he does veto it, it's going to require the General Assembly to have a supermajority vote to override his veto. That would be roughly 60 House members and 22 Senate members, which we have a supermajority in both chambers. And one last thing that I will state is that the governor's Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, they basically have a program that the governor wrote out in March. It's called the Mobile Response and Stabilization Service Program that deal with suicides that would be reported by a child throughout the entire state. Unfortunately, the governor's Department of Mental Health, they have embraced Ohio Revised Code 5122, which means that you could, once again, as I stated earlier, a child could have suicidal thoughts and their parents would never, or their legal guardian would never know of this mental health situation. So once again, I would urge those that are watching today, contact the governor's office at 614-466. And let's see here. I don't have the entire number here.
John, we have it on
Here
the
it is. I have it
recap
right
slide.
here. I have it right here. It's 614-466-3555. And contact the governor's office and let him know that you are not in support of Ohio Revised Code 5122.04. And with that, I thank you once again today, and I would turn it over to Linda Harvey, who is founder and president of Mission America.
All right, at this time, I want to do a technology test. Go ahead, Linda.
Can you hear me?
John, can you hear Linda?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead, Linda. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry this isn't working like this way. But anyway, here's what I'm talking about today. One of the things that we're doing in conjunction with Protect Ohio Children LGBTQ History Month. And that's coming up in October. And so, hang on one second. This is feeding back to me. And so what's happening with that is that the Banned Books Week, which used to be in September, has been moved into October, and many schools will be celebrating these extremely corrupting and deceptive events. Also, Coming Out Day, which will be October 11th, and all of this, many schools will be observing this by school library displays, cafeteria tables, special assemblies and speakers, and big displays in the hallway. And we've even got pictures of these in the past in Ohio schools. And so what Mission America has decided to do is we put together a nationwide coalition, which includes, of course, Protect Ohio Children were part of that, Ohio Value Voters as well, many other Ohio-based groups. but also the American Family Association National has signed on, Olive Tree Ministries, the American Association of Evangelicals, the Constitution Party National Committee, and many other national groups. And so we're asking people to pray and stand, check out what your local schools are doing, and let us know. You can send tips to Protect Ohio Children or to me at Mission America. That's tips@protectohiochildren.net. So the other thing I wanted to cover today is something regarding Ohio sex education and the Trump Department of HHS. And so what's happening is that Trump has cut funding for one specific one funding stream for pregnancy prevention and sex education. It's called PrEP, PREP. And we don't have a lot of that we can tell in Ohio schools, but we may have that we haven't identified. The reason he's cutting this is because it promotes gender ideology, and he's cutting out all of the school-based programs and the funding for that. He's really cut a lot in California on this. Well, in Ohio, we want you guys to take a look at what's going on in your local schools if you have PrEP going on, because you shouldn't, because of the Ohio abstinence law, because this program also is not abstinence-based. But the other thing that you need to know is where it does exist in Ohio at $4 million a year price tag, and the Trump administration may cut this, is after-school programs that are put on by the Ohio Department of Youth Services. And they receive, again, over $4 million a year. Planned Parenthood in many regions puts these on, and they're directed at foster care children and youth that are in the juvenile justice system. And so that's terribly unfair that it's already disadvantaged and probably in many cases very troubled children with issues already with their backgrounds and so on, and they're struggling to overcome this. Then they're on top of that, they're going to get the most radical of sex education. So the good news is that the Trump program may cut this out. We really hope you will watchdog this, and also any other sex ed that promotes gender ideology, because it may be subject to being cut if there's any federal funding involved by the Trump administration. So again, let us know. You could send that also to tips@protectohiochildren.net.
Thank you, Linda.
That's what I have for now.
Okay, we're going to turn this over to Cathy Pultz.
Hi, good morning. I guess it's afternoon. I am Cathy Pultz, and I'm the Central Ohio representative on Protect Ohio Children's Board. As a parent or guardian, remember that you make decisions for your child. Unfortunately, many public school districts are teaching topics that you believe are not age appropriate, do not align with your values, or they do not have anything to do with academic learning. You have the right to see your child's curriculum, and in Ohio law, you can opt out of sex ed, Aaron's Law, and the dating violence classes. We suggest that you use Protect Ohio Children's opt-out form, since it lets the district know your position as a parent, and the form is quite comprehensive. If you go to our website, protectohiochildren.net, there's a blue button on the right side of the homepage, which says click here for an opt-out form to use at your child's school. At the end of the webinar, there will be a page with the links to this, so you don't need to write it down, but just so that you know. The first form is entitled Racially Divisive Concepts /SEL Parental Non-Consent Opt-out Form. You'll find a list of sources that utilize racially divisive concepts, or SEL. This list will help you to look out for the curriculum in your child's classroom. Remember always that you need to ask questions. The second form is entitled Human Sexuality Instruction Parental Non-Consent Opt-out Form. The list, as above, as I said before, gives you knowledge of what to look for from your teachers or your district. These forms are quite comprehensive, and we have found that different school districts have different procedures for opting out. We have heard that some districts think that these forms are too comprehensive and might make you break it up, and others say that, yeah, you have to opt out of each lesson or activity, where other districts will be accommodating and helpful. And it is always a good idea as a parent or guardian to create a good relationship with the administrators, teachers, and counselors at your schools. And now, in addition to the POC opt-out forms on the website, you will find Marcia Metzger's Parents on the Level opt-out form, as well as the opt-out form from the Daily Caller. So you can really pick and choose which ones work best for you. In addition, there's a form that is called Protect Ohio Children's Coalition Toolbox file. So it is full of information for you. The other thing that you'll want to opt out of are the surveys. This is one of the most important topics for you as a parent, and you really need to be vigilant. Your district should be sending you emails letting you know if they are participating in a survey. Panorama is one of the more common surveys, and Ohio has one called the Oh Yes survey, which is for middle and high school, and you really should opt out of these surveys. They collect data. The Oh Yes survey specifically has very leading and misleading questions. And if you go to the state of Ohio's Department of Education and Workforce, you can get more details about your rights and the school's responsibility when it comes to the teaching of these topics. At the end of the webinar, again, there'll be a link to that page on the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. So my other big tip is you really need to be vigilant reading emails and newsletters from your teacher, the principals, and the district. We have found that I'm in Upper Arlington and parents are telling me they kind of changed the name of things, like the way they did the survey this year, they called it something else, even though it's Panorama. So it's the semantics. So a lot of parents might just gloss over and not realize what's coming. And then you should ask how the surveys are being administered. In my district, there was a problem 2 years ago because parents who opted out, the survey was sent to all the kids have iPads. So the survey was sent to all the iPads. And so there were kids who were not supposed to take it, but they're sitting around in a classroom and everybody's taking it. So they just took it. Our district has fixed that, but where they won't be sent to those children, but you really need to make sure that it's not happening. Another great tip is to make sure everyone knows that you're opting your child out, teacher, administrators, and counselors. And just like more than one person should know. And you really want to follow up if for some reason your child did get included in a classroom. I know a parent who, for the Aaron's Law, said that they wanted opted out and they forgot to do it. And there need to be consequences for that. We talked about Aaron's Law. The state says that children must be taught about abuse, and the curriculum used by many schools is not age appropriate. And so that's what you need to watch out for. The concept is good, but how they're doing it, you might not, we don't really agree with. In your elementary school, does the counselor come in and give lessons? In Upper Arlington, the elementary counselors come into the classroom about once a month to do a lesson. And you need to make sure your child is opted out if you find out there are lessons you're not happy with them learning. The School Counselor Association is very all in on identity politics. So you need to be aware. The biggest thing is to be proactive. Read everything coming home in emails and newsletters. Ask your teachers, ask the counselors, ask the principal. And unfortunately, you will need to fill out the form each year and maybe each semester. If the Panorama survey is given twice a year, you probably need to opt out twice. And then you need to remember to let your child know that you're opting them out so that they can learn to advocate for themselves. So they can say, you know what, I'm not supposed to take this. And like I said, please check our website, protectohiochildren.net, to get the forms. And next, we're going to hear from Darbi.
All right, thank you so much. So as the new school year starts and we are back to getting busy with our lives and school, sports, and fall activities, as you start to say to yourself, well, maybe public education isn't so bad and my child's teacher seems pretty nice, she can't be that bad. Well, let me remind you what curriculum is and why it is concerning. And the public education, anti-American, anti-Christian, socialistic in nature, curriculum is developed by communists and Marxists designed to corrupt our students and push progressive liberal agendas and worldviews like critical race theory, and that America is inherently racist, and that we need big government to save us, and other nefarious pedagogy. An example of that would be the recent shooting and murder of Charlie Kirk, who believes that our current administration is fascist, and that is a product of public education. Savvis Learning, a system that my local school district was just purchased for $600,000 in 2025. After reviewing the curriculum, I noticed a leftist narrative in the reading literature that is driving our students to believe in global warming, that Americans are not truly free. And then Savvis Learning blends activism with ELA, which is English Language Arts, pushing a worldview where systemic inequality drives global issues. And then Newsella, another program that has been purchased and is in many schools in Ohio, is an Agenda 11 curriculum, also known as Agenda 2030, which pushes sustainable developmental goals covering education, poverty, climate change, and gender equality, designed to produce compliant lifelong learners rather than sharp independent thinkers. And when they are talking about lifelong learners, they're talking about people who do not question the government, mainstream media, or the health industry, who listen and obey and believe everything that they say. Newsella has also been shown to omit key details by students and teachers and steer students towards a specific worldview, relying heavily on mainstream media like the Washington Post to reinforce the mainstream narrative. And then social emotional learning, which serves as a Trojan horse for an ideology that promotes lessons on topics like gender fluidity and systemic racism that portray America as fundamentally flawed and pushes the sexualization of our children, really pushing our children to hate America. And think LGBTQ agenda and teaching that a boy can become a girl and a girl can become a boy. And then if you disagree with this and you stand firm on values, whether they're Christian values or not, you are called a bigot and a racist. Again, James Lindsay has a podcast, New Discourses, and he has some great episodes on this topic and a great book. So when you're picture a wooden peg and trying to fit into a circle hole. So your child is that wooden peg, and that hole is the future that the education system, the teachers union, all of these people, these Marxists want for America. So they're taking social emotional learning, they're taking the curriculum, and they're slowly molding this child to fit into that future that they want for America. Another thing that I found was a purchase for a third-party contract with the Department of Defense Education Association, who evaluates our students on their social and emotional learning. So our Department of Defense is judging our students on their social and emotional learning. Another new one, artificial intelligence. This is a pervasive monitoring system that normalizes constant oversight, potentially shaping students' behavior to favor compliance over independence and priming them for a worldview where really privacy is obsolete. One example is Go Guardian, which tracks students' online activities, including their browsing history, their keystrokes, chats, and even webcam activation across potentially all students' devices. This subtly encourages self-censorship and conformity to avoid scrutiny. Sounds like China to me. And then systems like social emotional learning and PBIS, which is positive behavior interventions and supports, and are embedded with ideological agendas, such as lessons on gender fluidity or systemic racism, into these surveillance frameworks, reinforcing compliance with specific worldviews. And then AI takes all these online transactions and computes them to form an opinion on the school climate and the cultural, if the student is culturally competent. And so when I say school climate, it means fairness in instruction and encourages equity in education, and is framed as the cultural ideological tone set by policies and practices. And then when I'm talking about cultural competency of a student, it's understanding the student's cultural bias and how that shapes their perceptions, and assessing whether a student or even a staff member aligns with a specific cultural framework. And in our case, currently today that is diversity, equity, inclusion, and social emotional learning. And this is seen in current school climate as enforcing a particular ideology. So judging kids on how competent they are, of accepting the certain norms like the LGBTQ lifestyles and the sexual confusion narratives that a boy can be a girl. AI can transform all of these activities and create a spreadsheet and give an opinion on someone if they are culturally competent. And then this is potentially shared with other teachers and counselors, all by what your student is looking at online. So Google specific websites, they use data from mental health assessments, systems from like MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, and CASTLE. And then the teacher can take action and target that student who is of concern. And it also leaves our children vulnerable for groomers who can see what a child is looking up or questioning. So, okay, we've identified the problems. Now here's some action steps, because once you have the problem, you need to take action, and knowledge is power. So learn about your artificial intelligence in your school system and other systems being used in your district. You can use the records request like we spoke about earlier, or we have instructions on our website for Ohio Checkbook, and you can look and see potentially if your school district has signed up for Ohio Checkbook. You can see what programs and have been purchased. If you do not have Ohio Checkbook, try to petition your district to get it, either your superintendent or your board, whoever has your ear. Also, students can use a VPN on their phone to block spies, so to speak. Some school districts have a policy on putting a VPN on their laptop, but I would try to do that if I were a student. Also, let people know about school choice vouchers and look into homeschooling, guys. This stuff isn't changing anytime soon. Elect new board members. We need people who are brave to step up and run for the board. It's not easy. It's a sacrifice, and you are less of what you are already because your time is spread thin, but we need school board members to run and stand firm on the conservative platform. And then also share this information with your friends and family. So again, I want to echo what John said with repealing 5122.04. We can't speak about this enough. This was a law put in place in 1989. And again, if you're 14 years of age or older, a mental health professional may provide professional services, outpatient mental health services, and without the consent or knowledge of the minor's parents for 6 sessions or a month. 1 session is enough where they can get into your child's head and convince them that they're sexually confused. Also, HB 413, provide information on expenditures to the Ohio Checkbook. Young and Peterson, this is going to be presented in this session coming up. And this requires political subdivisions to participate in Ohio Checkbook. We want this. It's transparency. Why would a school or a government agency who's collecting our tax dollars not want to be transparent? We also have an exemption for education teachers like librarians, health and biology teachers, art teachers to distribute depictions of sex, nudity, and bestiality. There was a previous bill last session, HB 556, that would allow teachers and librarians to be charged with a second-degree felony for pandering obscenity in minors. And we need to reactivate that bill or write a new one that allows this exemption to be removed. And then lastly, we need our school board members to do their job and visit schools without interference. Did you know that school board members can't enter their schools? And Vivek just spoke about this just recently. So as an elected official, the school board has the right and duty to carry out the wishes of those who elected them by procuring a true unfiltered picture of what is going on in the public schools and vote accordingly for the superintendent's contract. But when we go to the board meetings, we get this horse and pony show. And so we're not really able to observe the true learning environment. And so it's time for board members to stop being feckless bobbleheads and for them to do their research. And so I've written a piece of legislation that I will be presenting to legislators. So I would definitely appreciate some support on that. And then again, go to protectohiochildren.net net if you have any questions. And if you want to find out more about artificial intelligence and social emotional learning, we have some great videos on our YouTube channel that you can watch. And that's it. Back to you, Diane.
Wow, what a great group of informed people here. Let me share my screen. What I'd like to do is to just give you a recap slide. And then after we recap a little bit, we'll take questions. There's already some in the chat, but you can use the chat down below in the center of your screen. So John covered the Parents' Bill of Rights gives parents the right to know all about their children's health, and was referenced several times today. Our opposition to what's going on with the mobile response and stabilization services that uses the Ohio Revised Code 512204, called to Governor DeWine. His number's on the screen. Also, Linda covered the school corruption and propaganda calendar. Please, everyone, take a look at this. It will blow you away at the magnitude of just absolute sexual radicalization of children that is coming through the schools. And in the nationwide History Month, LGBTQ History Month, please read, go to her website at missionamerica.com. Take a look at what's out there and get involved in this situation to protect the children. She also gave us such up-to-date information about what our president is doing with the Health and Human Services to limit these PrEP funds, and we need to make sure they're limited in Ohio. Cathy covered the opt-out forms in great degree there on the protectohiochildren.net website. That also includes an opt-out form, 4 different opt-out forms that you can choose which best works for you, and information about the Department of Education and Workforce. The link is there on your screen. And then lastly, we heard from Darbi about, defining for us what this woke curriculum is, what SEL is, totally dangerous for children, how AI is being used, actually surveillance going on children's laptops and computers in the classroom, and legislation, including the Ohio checkbook, that makes it mandatory for local community districts and school districts to report to the Ohio checkbook. We need this legislation. Also, please, we'd like to remind you, send your anonymous tips to tips@protectohiochildren.net. I have one other slide I want to bring up for you. This comes from Parents on the Level, Marcia Metzger, and let's see, did I lose it? Hold on just one second. Have to do this and bring up this. No, close that. There it is. Well, oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. All right. I just want to remind everyone that we had a great victory this year with the United States Supreme Court with the Mahmoud Taylor decision that ruled that parents have the right to direct the religious upbringing of their children. The United States Supreme Court stated in the case that there was a burden placed upon parents and that their fundamental parental rights for the religious beliefs of their children was undermined, and there was a very real threat to the parental rights. We need to ensure that the Supreme Court decision is carried out in Ohio schools. And so with this slide, this is what Cathy was referencing that's on our opt-out. This comes from Parents on the Level, and it gives you great detail about how to speak to this issue and opt your children out based on your religious beliefs. You have a right according to the United States Supreme Court. So use that form. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. And at this time, I'm going to look at the Q&A. Okay. hard to see. This is about relationships under construction in Ohio adolescents health centers. We would appreciate your support as curriculum directors are blocking us in some schools. We meet the Parents' Right to Know law, which is written for our programs, and would appreciate your prayers. And we provide curriculum to encourage your children to learn the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationships and why marriage and family are so important to our civilization. We are thankful for your hard work and prayers to save our children. So this program, the Ohio Adolescent Health Centers, these are programs that Protect Ohio Children highly advocates for, and we have for years across the state of Ohio at our meetings and in our webinars. You can go to your school district and request that they use Ohio Adolescent Health Centers for the curriculum that is given to students for sex education. Okay. John, you're on mute. John, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me also state once again for the individual that asked that question and for all the others that will have an opportunity to view today's videos, take a look at, once again, the Parental Bill of Rights, Section 3313.473. This was passed once again in December, signed by the governor in January, and it became law April 9th, 2025. Okay. You'll see that right there. Basically, it states parental involvement policy. Every single school district must come up with a policy that, and there's a laundry list of things listed there. So please take a look at that. And you know something? Go to your school district, go to the board members, and ask the question. Matter of fact, I'd recommend printing off the highlights of this law that's in place and ask for the policies. And if it's not in existence, the big question then becomes when, because you were to have had this adopted and drafted and provided to parents by April 9th, 2025. But did want to point that out. Thank you very much, Diane.
Okay, we have another question, and this is not a meeting to discuss political races, campaign election races, but a question's being asked about how we have met and spoken with Vivek Ramaswamy, and OVV has endorsed him. Maybe, John, this question's for you. What specific promises did Vivek make to reverse some of Governor DeWine's woke educational policies? Can you, in general, give your thoughts about how a Ramaswamy administration might be different?
Well, first of all, let me just go back in history just a little bit here. Senate Bill 1 that was passed the prior General Assembly, the 135th General Assembly, basically gave the governor complete authority over K through 12. He has failed, in my opinion, miserably. We have a good, probably 6 to 8 bills that he could evoke right now because he does have that authority of K through 12, but he has done nothing. When it comes to our interview that we had with Vivek Ramaswamy, Ohio Value Voters, being a 501c4, we are an organization that endorses candidates. But before we endorse a candidate, we do our best to vet that candidate. And we did have a very good conversation with Vivek. And we're going to find, I believe, with a new sheriff in town, a new governor, we're going to find him, doing things that unfortunately our current governor has not implemented with the power that the General Assembly has given to him.
All right. With that, we don't have any other questions. And I would like to just remind everyone to visit protectohiochildren.net. Our website is chock full of information that will help you with your, actually, let's see, did I Want to make sure I didn't miss anyone's question there. Yeah, we're good. So visit our website at protectohiochildren.net. We have 3 Facebook groups, Protect Ohio Children North, Central, and South, where you can engage directly with one another and with our team. And also, as was mentioned earlier, our Protect Ohio Children YouTube channel. And I just asked today, and we don't usually do this, but I just ask you for a donation. It doesn't take a lot to do what we do, but a small donation would help us to keep these webinars and videos going and communicating out through social media and our emails and using our technology. So we appreciate that, and we thank everyone for joining. This video or this webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel, and we will be sending it out for everyone to view at a later date here in the near future. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Have a great day.